We are all born free and equal, but while we're growing up, we are getting in some troubles. Some people have problems with alcohol, other people have problems with drugs, but in this video we will talk about some specific group of people who have different kind of problems. We will talk about 10 of the most evil serial killers who have been found guilty that you probably haven't heard of. Take your seat, get a drink and stay with us in the next minutes. Let's start with Gilles de Rais, who was born in 1405 in the province of Anjou. He was a knight and lord of Brittany, Anjou and Poitou. The French nobleman is considered to be the precursor to modern serial killers. The number of his victims is somewhere between 80 and 200, but in some books, the number is up to 600. The age of the victims is from 6 to 18, mostly blonde-haired and blue-eyed boys. Rais has lured the kids into his residences, then he has tortured, raped, and mutilated them. After finishing his evil things, the bodies of the victims were burned or buried. On May 15, 1440, Rais kidnapped a cleric. The act is investigated by the Bishop of Nantes, during which evidence of Rais crimes was uncovered. He was condemned to death on 26 October same year at Nantes. Born on May 23, 1950 in Santa Clara, California, Richard Trenton Chase has killed 6 people in a month, but due to his brutality, people gave him the nickname the Vampire of Sacramento. He has drunk the blood of his victims and has eaten some parts and organs of the bodies. On December 29, 1977, Chase has shot and killed his first victim, Ambrose Griffin, who was 51 years old engineer. His second victim was Teresa Wallen, a pregnant mother, who was shot 3 times and killed in her home. After the crime he had mutilated the corpse. A month after killing his first victim, he committed his final murders. On January 27, while entering Evelyn Meredith's house, he met her neighbor, Dawn Meredith, who he shot. He also killed the 38-year-old Evelyn, her 6-year-old son Jason, and her 22-month-old nephew David. After returning to his home, Chase started drinking David's blood and eating some of his internal organs. On 8 May, Chase was found guilty and was sentenced to die in the gas chamber. Waiting to die, Chase has committed suicide with an overdose of antidepressants in his prison cell on December 26, 1980. Also known as the Milwaukee Cannibal or the Milwaukee Monster, Jeffrey Dahmer was born on 21 May 1960. He has murdered at least 17 men and boys between 1978 and 1991. Dahmer has committed his first murder at the age of 18, killing the 19-year-old hitchhiker Stephen Hicks. After invading him to his home, Dahmer killed him, mutilated the corpse, put the body parts in plastic bags, and buried them in the backyard of his parents' house. On September 25, 1988, he was arrested for sexually founding a 13-year-old boy. After spending 10 months in a work release camp, he has convinced a judge that he needed a therapy and was released with a 5-year probation. Until July 22, 1991, he has killed 17 people, but his victim number 18 was able to escape and alert the police. In Dahmer's apartment were found several corpses that were stored in acid-filled vats. The court found Dahmer guilty on 15 counts of murder and sentenced him to 15 life terms, or almost 1,000 years in prison. On November 28, 1994, beaten to death by fellow inmate, Dahmer died in ambulance from severe head trauma. Born on 19 May, 1870 in Washington, D.C., Albert Fish is an American serial killer, known also as the Gray Man, the Werewolf of Wisteria and the Brooklyn Vampire. He is probably the most brutal serial killer ever because he has admitted that he molested more than 100 boys and was suspected in 5 kills. Fish himself also has confessed to 3 murders. In 1890, Fish has just arrived in New York City, and at that point he began raping young boys. Probably his most brutal murder was the death of Billy Gaffney. On February 11, 1927, 4-year-old Billy Gaffney and 3-year-old Billy Beaton disappeared from Beaton's apartment. The police suspect Peter Kudzanowski as a boy's killer, but later, a Brooklyn's trolley motorman identified Fish as a man who had been trying to quite a little boy, sitting and waiting with him on the station. Unfortunately, Gaffney's corpse has never been found. In prison, Fish admits to having eaten the corpse. He was executed on January 16, 1936 in the electric chair. Andrei Chikatilo is the most famous and notorious serial killer in Soviet Union. Born on 16 October 1936 in Ukraine, his name still instills fear in most of Ukrainian people. The butcher of Rostov was convicted of the murder of 53 children and women in a period of 12 years. In 1978, he moved to a small mining town near Rostov, and not much later he killed his first victim, a 9-year-old girl who he raped and stabbed with knife to death. Until 1983, the Red Ripper hasn't killed, but from June to September same year, he has murdered 4 people. All the victims were kids and women. The adult females were prostitutes and homeless. From 1984 to 1990, in his own words, Chikatilo has killed more than 50 people. In November 1990, he was finally caught when trying to approach young children. The Red Ripper went to trial on April 14, 1992. Chikatilo was kept in a cage in the center of the courtroom, which was built for his own protection from the families of his victims. He was found guilty on 52 of 53 murders and sentences to death. On February 14, 1994, the butcher of Rostov was executed by firing squad. Joachim Kroll was born on 17 April 1933 in Germany, in a family of a miner. Kroll was the 6th of 9 kids. He's also known as the Rurh cannibal and the Duisburg man-eater. After the death of his mother in 1955, Kroll started killing. His first victim was a 19-year-old girl who he raped and stabbed to death. In the next 21 years, Kroll has killed 13 more women, mostly teenagers. On July 3, 1976, he was arrested for kidnapping and killing his last victim, Marion Ketter, who was a 4-year-old girl. After his arrest, a neighbor complained to the policeman that the waste pipe had blocked up. Kroll had simply replied that the pipe had been blocked up with guts. After the investigation of his apartment, the police found parts of the Ketter's body. In April 1982, he was found guilty and was given 9 life sentences. 9 years later, he died of a heart attack in the prison. Danis Rader is an American killer who has murdered more than 10 people in Kansas between 1974 and 1991. He is known as the BTK killer, which stands for bind, torture, kill. Most of his victims are women. Rader describes his new victim as a new project. He strangles them until they lost consciousness, then revives and then repeating the circle again and again until they die. BTK killer became famous for sending letters to police and newspapers, explaining in detail and claiming responsibility for the murders. After long 13 years of pause, these letters were resumed in 2004, leading to his arrest a year later, in 2005. On February 28, 2005, he was charged with 10 counts. Later the same year, on June 27, the BTK killer pleaded guilty and was sentenced to a minimum of 175 years in prison, which he is currently still serving. Also known as the acid bath murder, John Haigh was an English serial killer who was born on July 24, 1909, in Stamford, England. He was convicted of the murders of 6 people, but he claimed that he has killed 9. He has believed that the police need a body before they charge a murder. Because of his beliefs, he started dissolving his victims' bodies in sulfuric acid, forging the papers, and later selling and collecting money. His first victim was the wealthy boss William McSwan, who disappeared on the 6th of September 1944. He told his parents that their son had moved to Scotland to avoid military service. 10 months later he killed them too. In the next 4 years, he has killed 6 more people. Some of the murders are still not unsolved. Haigh was found guilty and was executed on August 10, 1949. Javed Iqbal Mughal is the only Asian serial killer in our video. Born in 1956 in Lahore, Pakistan, Javed claimed that he has murdered 100 boys, aged between 6 and 16, during an 18-month period. At first, he was arrested in 1998 for sexually abusing 2 young boys for money. After he went off on bail, he started murdering boys. He found boys on the street, lured them to his home, then drugged, sexually assaulted, and killed them. Iqbal has dismembered their bodies and get rid of them in a vat of acid. Javed kept detailed records of his victims in his diary, including victims' names, ages, and some photos. He was arrested and found guilty on 30 December 1999. An interesting fact is that he was sentenced to die in the same way as he had murdered his victims. On October 7, 2001, he was found strangled with his bedsheets in his prison cell before his sentence could be carried out. Theodore Robert Bundy is the most famous serial killer, necrophile, and rapist in our video, and one of the most notorious criminals in US history. Born on November 24, 1946, Ted Bundy has more than 30 murders to his name, although the actual total number of his victims remains unknown. Some sources give us numbers as high as 100 or even more. Ted Bundy has raped and killed young women across the United States between 1974 and 1978. He was a clever young man who was able to approach a potential victim in a public place, during the day, or in a crowd. In 1975, Bundy was arrested and received a 1 to 15 years jail sentence, but he escaped twice from prison in 1977. On February 15, 1978, he got arrested for the second and last time. During his trial, his charm and intelligence drew the attention of many people, but it was not enough, and Bundy was executed in Florida's electric chair on 24 January, 1989. After his execution, many people celebrated, danced, and set off fireworks. His life inspired many novels, films, and movie characters. Who do you think is the most brutal killer in the history? Let us know in the comments down below. If you enjoy the video, please make sure that you gave it a thumbs up. For more interesting TENS videos, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you will not miss any new upload. See ya in the next video.